and look at it and say,
live on Facebook and StreamYard.
Welcome, Facebook and StreamYard viewers. This is Andy Humm, and I'm here with
Chris Cooper in for Ann Northrop.
Oh, it's good to have you, Chris. It's been a while, huh?
It has been a while.
Has it been a while? But how many years have you been doing this show with us?
Oh, my God. I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm in the opening credits, and I was not as gray then as I am now. So a while. Yeah, it's got to be, is it 20 years or something insane like that?
Easily.
Oof.
Easily.
I'm old.
But
we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
And I'm Chris Cooper, filling in for Ann Northrop.
Welcome, Chris. Good to have you back.
Thank you so much.
And I'll just tell the control room, we're not getting sound in here from things, but I hope you can hear us. In the headlines this week, we've been telling you about that Venezuelan gay guy who was thrown into an El Salvador gulag by the United States. Andre Jose Hernandez was freed in a prisoner swap, but he was sent back to Venezuela, which is the country that he was fleeing from anti-gay persecution.
Meanwhile, lesbians in exile, Ellen DeGeneres has joined Rosie O'Donnell in heading across the pond to the UK to escape fascism in the USA.
Yes, she made it official this week. The federal judge who was going to hear Trump's actually $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal is a gay black man.
Trump has been ordered by a court to restore $6.2 million in funds for LGBTQ and AIDS services, but
a small victory. But the Trump GOP war, and this is horrendous, on everything LGBTQ continues apace.
Defense appropriations bill loaded with anti-LGBTQ amendments has been passed by the House.
I hope that they can stop some of those in the Senate. Trump has a new gay billionaire best buddy.
And New Hampshire's Republican governor has vetoed some anti-LGBTQ bills.
Imagine that. Gavin Newsome, the governor of California, has doubled down on anti-trans policies, but he was taken to task by a prominent game show host.
While across the continent and down a little bit in Puerto Rico, the governor has restricted gender-affirming care for those under the age of 21.
Very sorry to read that. So we start with the good news, which is that America did a prisoner swap with Venezuela. We got back at Americans, and they took 250 Venezuelans out of the gulag in El Salvador.
Now, this was very deliberate on the part of the government of Venezuela. They had nabbed 10 Americans on various pretexts to hold them and use that as leverage to get these Venezuelans out of the gulag in El Salvador.
Right. So, obviously, most of them are not criminals, as America said when they sent them off to El Salvador to be tortured. But one of them, of course, was this prominent, we've been telling you about him, and we knew nothing about what happened to him until this week. And there he is at the top of the stairs in the black T-shirt. Yes, he has some tattoos on his arm, which have nothing to do with gang membership. That's Andre Jose Hernandez. So he had come to the United States for an asylum hearing, a legitimate asylum hearing, because he does fear persecution. And they just nabbed him and grabbed him and said, "You're a gang member because of your tattoos." Total lie by some thug at ICE. And now he's in Venezuela, where,
which is where he left because of the persecution, because he's queer. So is this a step forward? Well, sure, to get out of the El Salvadorian gulag. But the question is, where does he go now? What happens to him now?
He was told, he gave an interview, which we're going to link to in our email. Now, it's in Spanish, and we haven't had it translated yet, but some of you speak Spanish, and you can listen to it, and you can at least see him. But he talks about all the torture that he went through, according to his lawyer. And at the end of it, he's just, reduced to tears.
This is really important. I want to focus on this one thing, which is how Trump officials, including the president himself, said for months that they have no control over what happens in CCOT, as it's called, that Salvadoran gulag. And that, they told court after court after court, we can't do anything to bring anybody back because it's El Salvadoran jurisdiction. We can't do anything. Suddenly, all of a sudden, when there are 10 Americans at stake in Venezuela, they find a way. And that's really telling about how they disregard the courts and they lie and they lie and they lie to the courts.
Well, they're not going to need El Salvador anymore because they've got
Somalia,
tens of billions. No, they need tens. They do some of that to scare people and to also shut people off. But they're building them here, whether it's Alligator Alcatraz or the real Alcatraz that they want to reopen. I mean, it's all terror. And, when they finish with the immigrants, they're going to be turning on us.
It's not just terror. It's money. It's the fact that these Republican donors are the ones who get all the funds to build these prisons, quote unquote, really
with no standards.
Camps.
No standards. Well, anyway, so congratulations to Andrew. We'll keep you posted on that. We had here's the demo we had in Foley Square and across the country this week, which was mostly standing up for immigrants. Here's a guy with an Andre sign. And there we all are down there in Foley Square. Free them all, because it's not just about him. It's about all these people who are being grabbed. And the stories you read every day of people that, some 72-year-old guy who's been here for 60 years who gets sent to a detention center and ends up in Guatemala. This is insane. We've got to stop this.
Well, the courts have tried to intervene. Unfortunately, the courts moved glacially. But in a good note, U.S. District Judge Stephanie Gallagher in Baltimore has now cleared the way for contempt charges against the administration in at least one of these cases, that of a 20-year-old Venezuelan migrant. So, as glacially as it moves, there is now a possibility of contempt findings against the administration for their constant
Trump said he wants to
lies.
hire 10,000 more ICE agents, and that's very hard to do. But it will certainly mean less training, lower standards, and more criminality.
Well, they were already offering a bonus for
the money they want to pay them.
Right. Well,
salaries
to hire them back.
Yes, salaries of $130,000 a year. We can't afford teachers, but we can afford this. And then for the supervisors, $300,000 a year, because they were just given $170 billion to set up a police state.
So why don't we all apply for these jobs and then do the job poorly?
Well, what I was
worst they can do is fire us.
What I was hoping is the next administration, but it's much too far away, could come in, Democratic administration, and design a humane system of handling asylum seekers and everything else with all that money. And by the way, maybe improve U.S. prison life as well, which is pretty grim to begin with. All right, so look, RuPaul's Drag Race alumnus Tsunami Muse says she has relocated from the U.S. to Panama. She wrote that she made the decision to be able to explore the world and cited a difficult and complicated situation in the U.S. People are leaving.
Yeah, well, and for her in particular, it's complicated because she is under the DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and there are huge hurdles for DACA folks who want to go overseas.
Right.
And so if she wanted to tour Europe like she planned, it was simpler for her to just relocate to Panama. And one of her fans said, this is essentially Tsunami self-deporting.
And there used to be some bipartisanship, or we're going to do something for the DACA people, for the Dreamers and all that. But now there's not. It's just all anti-immigrant.
Well, speaking of relocating, Ellen DeGeneres moved in November with her wife, Portia de Rossi, over to the Cotswolds, which is in southern England. And they just announced, hey, you know what? We're staying. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys, I think, mentioned on the show, because I watch Gay USA, which is where I learned these things, that Ellen and Rosie O'Donnell are not pals.
But when Rosie had all the trouble with Trump recently, and they was threatened with excommunication or denaturalization or whatever, or just revoking her citizenship, excuse me.
Which you can't do.
Ellen stood up for her and said, that's great. She posted that,
So our prominent lesbian comics are relocating to the UK. She loves it there. She talks about how peaceful it is and how nice and clean it is. And I'm like, girl, just get outside of New York City or Los Angeles and you'll find nice, calm, peaceful places. But
we're not.
Anyway.
By the way, Vice President Vance and his wife Usha and their children are going to rent a cottage in the Cotswolds in mid-August. And the Stop the Trump coalition has pledged to ensure that their merriment falls flat. Anyway, Trump is also going over to Scotland to tour his golf courses, and there'll be a lot of protests over there.
As I recall, J.D. Vance encountered a lot of resistance when he tried to ski in, was it Vermont or New Hampshire?
Yes.
Yeah. So
wherever he goes. Okay. Now, the biggest news that's been, covering the news is the Epstein files. And so
to be clear, nobody cares about the Epstein files except for the right-wing conspiracy theorists. But because these Republicans have built their entire brand on right-wing conspiracies, and suddenly they're like, oh no conspiracy to see here, their base is up in arms. The rest of us are like, Epstein, move on. But as long as it causes them pain, it's a good thing. And it's causing Trump tremendous pain. So he sued the Wall Street Journal when they published a saucy letter that he supposedly sent to
it was a birthday
Epstein.
book for Epstein when Epstein turned 50. Bill Clinton has a letter in there. Alan Dershowitz has a letter in there. And Trump's is rather salacious because his signature is made out to be the pubic hair of a woman.
Right. So he sued the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion over them publishing this information, thereby going up against Rupert Murdoch. And as it turns out, the case has been assigned to an openly gay black judge appointed by Obama. His name is Darren Gales. And when he was appointed, he was the first openly gay African-American man to be appointed to a judgeship of that level and that high.
I mean, the letter that he wrote was very incriminating because, Trump wrote a happy birthday and may every day be another wonderful secret. And obviously they all the stuff they did with underage girls was a big secret.
And it can't be said.
Am I going to get sued now for $10 billion?
It can't be said. We're just reporting on what they reported.
Right.
It can't be said too often that Trump, in a 2002 interview in New York Magazine, called Epstein a terrific guy, and went on to say that it is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
Yes, indeed. All right, some more good news. The Trump administration, because our group sued, was forced to restore $6.2 million to LGBTQ and HIV groups. This was a ruling by Judge John S. Tigar, Tigar. He said the groups are likely to succeed, and he said, you're denying people without giving you relief. You're denying people critical support for life-saving healthcare and support services to marginalized LGBTQ populations. The loss threatens not only the survival of critical programs, but also forces the plaintiffs to choose between their constitutional rights and their continued existence.
And let's be clear, I think the group spearheading that successful lawsuit was Lambda Legal Defense. So go Lambda. We love you.
Yes, our legal groups are really doing a great job.
But in bad news, there's a bill that got through the House that strips healthcare protections to queer service members. It contains 4 anti-LGBTQ riders that prevent medically necessary care for transgender people. So even if somehow Trump's
No, wait a minute. This was not in the big ugly bill, was it? Or is this part of the appropriations, the defense appropriations bill?
I believe this is part of the defense appropriations bill.
So my question about all these anti-gay amendments that the House is passing, because they hate us, Republicans hate us. Can't that be stopped through the filibuster, or with the Democrats in the Senate?
Hopefully, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All
So they passed a bunch of these, but there was one thing they did not pass. Oh no, actually,
right.
Yes,
Marjorie Taylor Greene had one.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had an amendment that would have gotten rid of HIV prevention funding, and so that did not pass. The only thing that did not pass.
That was a bridge too far.
Yes.
But the other ones give you a license to discriminate and ban drag shows and all that stuff. All right, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has just canceled, now listen to this, $18.5 million in grants to LGBTQ programs that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're cutting funding for the Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships because the spending went to ideologically driven programs, and among them is, SMILE, which is, supporting and mentoring youth and advocates and leaders in the LGBTQ youth community. So this is the kind of stuff they're doing. They just look for these things in their budgets and they cross them out because it has to do with us.
And this is on the heels of them already canning a connection to the Trevor Project and the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Right. I even saw a Republican Congress member have a press conference saying this is terrible. It was Mike Lawler, who by the way is not running for governor of New York anymore. He's trying to reclaim his seat. He acts like he's a moderate, but he voted for all those terrible bills.
Exactly.
All right. The Trump administration has issued a new mandate requiring all federal agencies to eliminate recognition of gender identity, reinforcing a rigid binary definition of sex and gender throughout the executive branch. By mid-August, you got to accomplish this. You've got to. This is in keeping with the executive order defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government.
It's Orwellian in their speak. And correct me if I'm wrong, it also has implications for passports. And that if you have an X marker on your passport, which you can still legally have for now, after August, I believe it's after August, that you still have to file as male or female for your tickets, even though your passport says X.
We did talk about that. But you've got some time to still get an X marker on your passport. But then the window will close. The window is closed. And then they'll say, you got to do a new one because we're not accepting this.
And even regardless of whether or not you have that X marker on your passport, you still, after a certain point in August or September, you're still going to have to, when you file for your tickets for an airline, specify male or female. So, shall we talk about Trump's new billionaire best buddy, or do you have more money news?
Let me just see where we are. Well, I also want to mention that in Washington, D.C., Children's National Hospital is going to stop prescribing and monitoring gender-affirming medications for trans youth by August 30th, citing the Trump orders. And, they say, we recognize the impact this has had on you and your family in the letter to their patients. And we're here to support you. No, you're not. You're giving up on these kids.
But, I kind of understand the bind they're in. I mean, because they're going to lose all their money if they don't.
Well, that's what's happening everywhere, but people have to band together and stand up to it. So you want to talk about the...
Sure. Trump, because he had a falling out with Elon Musk, now has cozied up to Sam Altman. He's the CEO of OpenAI, who is actually bitter enemies of Elon Musk. But he has now gotten...
There he is there on the right. The other guy is Trump. Yeah.
And now he's gotten his fingers into the administration. And I think he's hoping to influence AI policy. I want to make it very clear. I'm declaring a sexual fatwa against Sam Altman.
He's married now, I think.
I don't care. Whether married or not, no gay man is allowed to give him sex until he comes to his senses, because he used to support Democratic causes. He supported Hillary Clinton in 2016, and now suddenly he's done this turnaround, purely because the money, the influence.
Well, it's like the plot of Lysistrata, where the women withhold sexual favors from the men because they're at war.
I'm glad you could remember the classical reference, because I was trying to think of it and I couldn't.
I saw Alan Cumming in the play.
It is exactly
More
like
about
that.
whom later.
Sexual fatwa against Sam Altman till he comes to his senses. No sex for him.
I think a lot of that is going on because a lot, women are also being, completely assaulted by this administration. And if they're married to, someone who was MAGA or something, I mean, there's a tendency to not want to make them happy anymore.
So you think J.D. Vance ain't getting them?
I heard a friend posted that Laverne Cox has a MAGA cop boyfriend now. That's not, and usually I don't criticize anybody who you go out with, but that's kind of a bridge too far. I couldn't do it, no matter how good looking they were. All right. Okay, appropriations bill, you went through all that.
Well, meanwhile, in New Hampshire, we got a little bit of good news from a Republican, shock of shocks.
Kelly Ayotte.
Exactly.
Is that her name?
That's her name.
The governor.
The governor of New Hampshire, Republican, and she vetoed a whole bunch of anti-gay bills. Good for her. It would have essentially been a book banning law that would have taken effect in New Hampshire. Anything that materials that were deemed harmful to minors could be challenged. And she said, hey, you know what? We already have a mechanism to challenge the books in New Hampshire. We don't need this.
Right.
So she vetoed that. She vetoed something about segregating people by sex at birth rather than gender identity in businesses and correctional facilities, because, shock of shocks, New Hampshire has anti-discrimination protections on the basis of gender identity.
Yeah.
And she said, this doesn't work with that. So, she vetoed a bunch of things. So, good for her.
Well, New Hampshire and the Republicans in Vermont, I mean, they have some Republicans as well. They're of a different breed.
They're old school
a dying
Republicans.
breed.
Yeah, they're old school Republicans.
Right. And then, there's these horrible what's happening to television. We're still here, but enormous cuts to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, PBS and NPR. Now, I have a question about this. This was part of the rescission bill. Are you better off without government money? I mean, essentially. I mean, if it's the federal government and they're going to be putting all these restrictions on, and you got to, should you? Because it's not for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It's like 10% of their budget. That's a lot. And it is going to kill off a lot of these local stations in North Dakota and places like that. Mm-hmm. But would you be better off just raising money from the public, like we do here at Gay USA? I mean, that's the only way essentially we survive. You send us some donations. We will not accept government money, and we don't have any corporate money as well.
Well, this goes to the pattern in this administration of silencing critics. And they cut the funding to something like NPR because they're not towing the line, or they use coercion, as they did with Stephen Colbert.
Yes.
They basically, because they knew that CBS was going to need approval for a merger, basically CBS said, okay, Stephen Colbert has got to go. Same thing with ABC and CBS 60 Minutes, when they gave all that ridiculous amount of money to Trump for frivolous lawsuits because they wanted to have their mergers approved, and they knew they wouldn't get it under this administration unless they caved, and they did. Wall Street Journal has not caved yet, but the administration is using the same tactic, suing for $10 billion to try to silence them and to intimidate others into actually telling the truth. Telecom giants like Verizon and T-Mobile have both withdrawn their DEI programs and statements because they knew their mergers wouldn't be approved if they weren't trying to merge together, but they had separate merger deals with other people, and they wouldn't be approved. What they're trying to do to Harvard, what they've done to Columbia, again, coercion to silence critics, to force a certain agenda.
Well, it's how fascism takes hold, because people obey in advance.
Exactly.
They don't even wait to be ordered to do it. They just obey in advance, which we do not do here at Gay USA.
And I want to stress how important the courts have been as the one backstop. Both Republican appointed and democratically appointed judges have been pushing back on these things, again, glacially, but it's happening. Like how we talked about earlier, how the judge had opened the way for contempt charges. But again, it's glacial. Just came down that the White House has won the appeal so far against the Associated Press that refused to use the term Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico. And so now they've been banned from Air Force One, from White House press conferences, and the courts said that was okay. So now it likely will have to go to the Supreme Court, and who knows what's going to happen there. So the one place where we've been winning is the courts, and now they're trying to seize control of that. That's why the Senate hasn't gone into recess, because Trump wants to keep them there in August until they approve all his appointees, so he can stack the federal judiciary, because he knows he's losing, and he just got one of his first confirmations.
This is terrible.
A judge named Joshua Devine just got a lifetime, he's 35 years old, and he just got a lifetime appointment on a seat in the U.S. District Court in Missouri. He has a long record of litigation against women's reproductive rights, including leading a major challenge to the FDA's decades-long approval of mifepristone.
The abortion pill.
He also argued in favor of bringing back literacy tests for voting, which was a practice they used in the 1960s to keep people like me from being able to vote.
Well, they didn't just do literacy tests. They said how many jelly beans are in this jar, and if you can't tell me, we're not going to let you vote.
But he's trying to bring back the literacy tests, or he argued in favor of that. And he has compared LGBTQ rights to pedophilia and bestiality. He says that Christians are, quote, obliged to ethically impose their beliefs on others. And this 35-year-old just got a lifetime appointment to the U.S. District Court in Missouri.
Whoa, another like Kazmarak out there in the north of Texas who will be ruling against us. Well, at least they can't do national injunctions anymore. If you care about your loved ones in nursing homes, Trump's immigration crackdown is beginning to strain the long-term healthcare, workforce there in the homes. And, some providers had to terminate some people because of their immigration status, and others are just not showing up for work because they're afraid.
You have to think, did they ever stop to think who's actually doing all the work that nobody else wants to do?
Yes. Well, and of course we do have that line about, the people who pick the crops, the people who,
empty the bedpans.
Exactly. And all that stuff. But also we're losing all the brilliant immigrants who were doing all the innovation in the United States, who are now giving their services to other places. People don't want to come here.
Well, again, that goes back
and tourists. We're losing all the tourists. And who wants to come? Certainly they don't want to come down from Canada, but they're going to stop coming from Europe. And the tourism industry here is just losing out tremendously.
Well, and I think this goes back to the fact that the United States, as we knew it, is done. It's over.
Yes.
They broke government. They have been trying to break government for a long time, and now these extreme right-wing forces have managed to do it.
Using the problems in the Constitution.
So the question is, we can't get it back, or we can get some of it back, maybe eventually, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe that shouldn't be the goal. Instead of trying to get back the United States we knew, which again is done, we need to start thinking ahead about what new kind of United States we can have. Rather than trying to piece it back together, let's start thinking creatively, think boldly, think imaginatively about how the United States can work. And it's the death of Edwin Fulner, he died at 83. He was the head of the Heritage Foundation. He was one of the founders, head of it for like 17 years. They're the ones who came up with Project 2025. He just died. And reading his obit, I realized, they spent so long in the wilderness. They were fringe. They were nobody. And then through years of hard work, they got their agenda to the point where it is now redefining the United States. That's what we need to do. We need to start thinking creatively and long-term and start putting together an agenda that we can slowly build and eventually have a new United States that works better than the old thing that's now gone for good.
But as the old Michael Callan song, my friend Michael Callan, famous AIDS activist, said, what we don't used to sing, but we don't have is time. We don't have time. I mean, we're only an eighth into this Trump administration. I mean, my God, it was so much more time ahead and so much more time for mischief. And yes, winning the midterms would certainly put a little, crook in his work, but we have to start fighting for things like, I would say, devolution, which means devolving things to the states, where New York and California and Maine and all these other places that are more civilized say, we're going to live a different way and we're not taking federal interference. It is, after all, what the Confederacy did, the South did after the Civil War. They just basically nullified the results of the Civil War and said, we're going to have Jim Crow and we're going to find a way to have slaves, essentially, through, putting people back to work and pay them very little. All that kind of stuff happened. We could do it in a good way, and we have to start standing up for ourselves.
Well, Andy, that's the kind of thinking I think we need to start doing, which is that, think creatively, think outside the box, something you've advocated for the longest time on the show over and over, expanding the Supreme Court. That should be number one on our agenda the second we have control of the White House again in both houses of Congress. And we need to start normalizing that idea. So, because when Biden was in, he was like, oh, that's too radical. That's too scary. It's like, too radical? Look what's happened.
Right.
Because you didn't do it.
We're being run over.
Yeah. So, let's start thinking creatively.
And look at the kind of people that we have here in the government. Linda McMahon, the wrestling executive, was appearing before the Congressional Committee, and Mark Takano, gay guy, congressman. Madam Secretary, does refusing to hire a Holocaust denier as a member of Harvard's history department faculty count as an ideological litmus test because she's against them?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there should be diversity of viewpoints relative to teachings and opinions on campuses, she said. Are you even listening? You want Holocaust deniers now? Well,
and of course, that's a lie. They don't want viewpoint diversity. They want their viewpoint and only their viewpoint. So,
all right. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee has updated its policies to say it will comply with President Trump's executive order banning transgender women from competing in women's sports. Now, everything was going in that direction anyway. But and there were no transgender winners at the Olympics. There were some contestants, but American middle distance runner Nikki Hiltz, who is non-binary, would presumably not be affected by the ruling because they were assigned female at birth. Hiltz finished 7th in the 1,500 meters in Paris.
Well, and to flash back for a second to our discussion about funds being withdrawn, funds being released, the Trump administration has released $1.3 billion in frozen federal funding for after-school programs simply because even the Republicans wouldn't tolerate that. They said it was a step too far.
Right. Good. And then there's veteran federal prosecutor Maureen Comey, known for her work on the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases. Trump reached into this department and he fired her. I want her out. She's the daughter of James Comey. And she fired back. If a career prosecutor can be fired without reason, fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. You think? And she said, do not let this happen. We've entered a new phase where without fear may be the challenge. Let this moment fuel the fire that already burns at the heart of this place, the office, of commitment to seek justice for victims, of dedication to truth above all else. All very nice sentiments, but they're out the window now.
Not directly related to gay things, but about the kind of Justice Department we have now.
Yes.
Breonna Taylor was the young Black woman who was shot to death in her own home, in her own bed, by police officers executing a no-knock warrant
in Louisville,
Kentucky.
Yeah.
I want to start just saying a little bit about Breonna Taylor, because too often we talk about, oh, this person as just something happened to them. But let's talk about the person.
Sure, of course.
She became an emergency medical technician for the city of Louisville, working for Jewish East Medical Center as a full-time emergency room technician and practicing registered nurse for Norton Healthcare. She desired to become a full-fledged nurse, and then her dreams obviously ended at the age of 26 when she was shot dead in her bed. So there's only been one person who's been held accountable, well, two technically, but for the shooting. Right. He wasn't the one who fired the shots that killed her, but he was outside and just kind of started shooting randomly into the apartment buildings where everybody lived.
His name was Brent Hankison.
Yes, Brett Hankison. And he was found guilty.
That's, of course, him, the white guy on the left.
Yes. He fired 10 rounds into Taylor's apartment, 3 of which traveled into an adjacent unit. And so he was charged with violating the civil rights of the tenants and was found guilty. So once the Trump Justice Department took over, what did they decide to do? They recommended that even though this guy had been found guilty, that his sentence should be 1 day.
Hasn't he suffered enough is basically what they were saying.
I can't tell you how that felt as a black person to read that. It was a deliberate thumb in the eye so that he could appeal to his white supremacist supporters and could appeal to his, cops can do no wrong supporters. Happily.
Unless they're defending the Capitol.
Exactly. Happily. That's not what happened in this actual sentencing. The judge gave Brett Hankison a 33-month sentence, so almost 3 years for violating her civil rights. So that's our Justice Department these days.
All right. The National Park Service is continuing to remove historical, look, you go to these places, I went to the University of Virginia, you go up to Monticello, Jefferson's home. They didn't mention that he had, slaves. And now, of course, they have all kinds of context at these national places. Well, now we're talking about the Muir Woods, and they highlighted the racist ideologies of some of the men associated with the site who did terrible things. One of them laid the groundwork for the Japanese mass internment during World War II, etc.
But even more relevant to that specific site, they mentioned the women's movements, the women's clubs that had pushed to have the woods turned into a national park.
Yes.
And there was also signage that talked about the Native American tribes that, used to be on the land before they got pushed off.
So all that is gone now, wiped from, you're not allowed to talk about these things. No. What do they call it?
There's a name for this executive order. That's, again, Orwellian speak. I had it too. Oh, well, I can't
they
find
call
it
it History Under Construction.
No. That was History Under Construction was the name of the program where they started adding the relevant stuff. But they had an Orwellian name for the new executive order that causes all these things to be whitewashed and removed.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's move on. You've talked to, Gavin Newsome, he's running for president, and one of his issues is...
Has he declared?
Well, come on.
All right. Okay.
It's getting close. So he has been trying to distinguish himself by essentially, not being good on trans issues and, saying he agrees with a lot of the right wing on this. So of all people, Jeopardy host Ken Jennings says, I will never support Gavin Newsom for president due to his anti-trans stuff. Never, ever. Well, of course, I have to say, if he's up against J.D. Vance, I might vote for him. I think his positions on trans stuff are terrible.
Horrible.
But I don't get to choose. But the governor said he completely aligns with some of the gender politics of far-right extremist Charlie Kirk. And that's the kind of stuff he keeps putting out there.
And he's been doing kind of a right-wing apology tour, going to various right-wing media outlets to talk about this. And even if you have some reservations about, trans participation in sports or whatever, to go on right-wing media and kick the trans community while they're
Yes.
down, when they're fighting for their lives,
course.
it's just appalling.
I mean, you might look at a different model, which is what's happening in New York with Zohran Mamdani, who was totally pro-trans and came out of nowhere and won the Democratic nomination for mayor. He's still being opposed by a bunch of people in the general election, but he's unapologetic about those things. He doesn't, and you confront him about of his positions, his past positions, and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't get nervous and start to slip away from them.
Of course, he's running in New York City.
Well, New York City is not a liberal town. I've lived here all my life. How long have you lived here? You're from Long Island. I'm from Long Island. New York is not a liberal town. It took us 15 years to pass a basic gay rights bill. We thought it up here in 1971, Gay Activist Alliance. First one of the country, one of the last big cities to pass one was New York, because we could have passed it in Manhattan in 1971, but we have Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Queens. Now they've changed over the years.
Except for Staten Island.
No, we've elected some Democrats out there and some people of color as representatives, so it's changing. But
since you brought it up, I just have to point out that my high school beat your high school in debate all the time.
Your high school was...
I was a high school debater. Uniondale High School.
You were at Uniondale.
You were at Chaminade.
Chaminade, and
Yeah.
you beat us in debate. I wasn't a debater. I'm obviously losing the debate here, so I was in dramatic interpretation in high school. All right, Texas. Governor Greg Abbott has called a special legislative session to address the deadly floods. This is going on that left 134 dead and 101 missing. But all they're doing is introducing, social issues and things.
And redistricting.
And they want to redistrict. I don't know how this is going to work. How much worse can it get in Texas?
Well, apparently they're thinking they can pick up 5 seats by what they're planning.
In other words, usually you do redistricting once every 10 years.
Right, after the census comes out.
That's not a requirement. You can do it again. And that's what they're doing.
Right.
But then we have to fight back in California and New York.
Exactly.
Do we have the guts to fight back and say, we'll redistrict Republicans out of existence?
That's what Beto O'Rourke has called for, exactly that.
Even Hakeem Jeffries intimated that he's going to push for that. But you better get busy in New York and do it.
Yep.
Because that's the only defense. But again, what a broken system. Because again, this leaves you with a Congress that is nothing but polarized districts. Nothing but. I like districts where people have to compete, where you actually, both sides have to compete, and then you have to push things towards the middle again.
So maybe one of those big ideas for a new USA is to think about a parliamentary system.
You could have a parliamentary system, or you could have fair districting. But parliamentary might be nice. We only have 435 members in Congress for a country of over 300 million people. That's insane. 1 million people in each district.
I'll tell you what's insane is having 50 senators, 2 from each state, regardless of the size of the state.
Well, if you don't give us the 2 senators, we're not signing on to this Constitution. And that's the way it went down.
Yeah, but it may have made sense back then when the difference between the states was in population was maybe about 1 to 10. Now it's something like 1 to 50 or 60.
That's nuts.
When you compare Wyoming to California, and that means urban voices are completely stifled.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. All right, so Texas. Also, update on the wicked Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who's also running for U.S. Senate. And of course, he's involved in an ugly divorce case with his state senator wife, which now they've sealed the proceedings on that. So what's he doing to distract from this? He's announced a lawsuit against U.S. Masters Swimming, alleging that they are engaged in, they've cowered to radical gender war activists and deprive female participants of fairness in sports. So this is what he's doing.
Yeah, scapegoat.
I hope it doesn't work.
We'll see. Are we ready for some crime news?
Well, we should talk about Puerto Rico.
Of course.
Well, Governor, we told you that they passed this bill barring gender-affirming care for anybody under 21, not just under 18, under 21. Bars puberty blockers, hormone therapy, gender-affirming surgeries for individuals. And it was signed by Puerto Rican Governor Jennifer Gonzalez Colon.
No, as I understood, she had previously resisted signing that.
Well, she had said she wanted it a different way, and she didn't want to, make it so horrible. But then when they passed it, she just signed it. So come on.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Meanwhile.
Oh, and by the way, in terms of you saying crime, in Florida, cities across Florida, they're whitewashing or covering over all the rainbow walks under orders from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and, of course, the wicked governor, Ron DeSantis.
Andy keeps using the term wicked. I want to make it clear that he is not referring to the popular Broadway show or the movie adaptation. And I must add, some of you viewers already know this. I have had a boycott on setting foot in the state of Florida or drinking orange juice for at least the last 10 years.
Oh.
I will not give them my money ever since the Trayvon Martin.
Juice?
Ever since I do not drink orange juice.
Grapefruit juice?
Ever since the Trayvon Martin verdict, and it's only gotten worse since. But that's the only influence we have.
All right. We'll move on.
Yes.
Okay. In Tennessee, a woman was denied prenatal care because her doctor refused to treat an unwed mother. She had to go out of state to get the treatment.
And the thing is, that's a Tennessee law, which allows people to cite religious objections to deny medical care. And obviously, if they're going to wield it against an unwed mother, they can wield it against us as queer people.
A couple of New York notes in New York State. The state's passed 3 bills that expand protections for gender-affirming care. Governor Hochul, you haven't signed them yet. And then Hochul dealt a blow to Andrew Cuomo by settling a suit by one of the women that he had he's a sex pest, and there he is with this woman. But she sued, and she got a big settlement from the state.
The reason why that's a blow to Andrew Cuomo is because he doesn't then get to protest his innocence in court, which he wants to do as he's running for New York City mayor. And
Cuomo told business leaders, if Mamdani wins the election, I'm going to Florida. Well, he might as well. He's only lived in New York City for less than a year. He lives across the street from Ann now, so she sees him sometimes on the street. So he might as well. He doesn't really have connections to the city other than in childhood.
Meanwhile, in Oklahoma, the head of education there, Republican Ryan Walters, who's just like pushing his nose up Trump's butt as far as he can get
School's a superintendent.
And not in a good, pleasurable way. He is basically imposing a woke ideology test on teachers.
Why isn't he Secretary of Education? I don't understand.
He may become one soon. He's the one who wanted to pay tremendous amounts of money to get Trump Bibles into the school.
That's right. Trump Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Crime news. Detroit trans woman Carmen Wells, a popular ballroom performer, was shot and killed on May 25th in her apartment on Detroit's east side. Now her killer still remains at large. So this is the problem.
Yeah, I don't think they even have a suspect.
The prosecutor's office says that it may be due to intimate partner violence. And they also say that it often, they say sometimes it's like the person, or if it's a trick or something like that, that discover it was a trans woman. No, they're ashamed to be known as someone who went with a trans person.
And just because we should talk a little bit about the person's life, Carmen Wells was dubbed the Walking Wonder, and she won the status of legend in the iconic International House of Revlon in 2018.
Oh, and just terrible, the violence that goes on and on and on, and it is fomented by this administration.
Should we talk about some good news in Philadelphia? There's a women's sports bar that's opening this summer, named for Marsha P. Johnson. It's called Marsha's, and it's being opened by Siobhan Anderson with partner Trisha Eichelberger. And it started because she went into a sports bar and wanted to see the women's FIFA final, women's World Cup.
When Megan Rapinoe was playing?
Exactly. So it was big stars, and she had to fight with the guy running the bar to put that match on. So she's done with that. Now she's opening up her own women's sports bar in Philadelphia.
In mid to late August, and they're going to show LGBTQ films and television shows. You're welcome to run Gay USA in your bar.
Well done, Siobhan.
Actually, Lou Millette, when we were with Lou Milletta back in the 20th century, they used to run it in some of the bars, the show, on the screen. Okay, let's have international news.
Sure.
Well, a federal judge in Canada blocked the deportation of a non-binary American citizen, citing fears of persecution under the Trump administration. So Angel Jenkai, a 24-year-old who came to Ontario from Minnesota as a visitor, faced being deported from Canada, and they convinced a judge, look, I can't go back to the United States, it's scary. He says, no matter what I do, I look trans, people read me that way, and it's not safe for us. So people are seeking asylum to stay out of the United States.
Meanwhile, in Russia, a new law makes it illegal to even perform an internet search for quote unquote extremist content. Specifically, Pussy Riot has been on the list of a federal list of extremist materials, but of course anything gay is on the federal list of extremist materials.
When we get our report on who's searching our website, there's a lot from Russia. So you be careful.
But my favorite international story of the week, the daughter of Norwegian Princess Martha Louise has become Norway's first royal to come out.
Her name is 22-year-old Maud Angelica Ben.
Yes, and she is 22 years old, and she came out as bisexual. Some really interesting twists show she is fifth in line to the throne.
Wow.
And her mother, Martha Louise, is a self-described clairvoyant. Her father, unfortunately, committed suicide, but not before 2 years prior. He accused Kevin Spacey of misconduct. So Kevin Spacey somehow gets into this royal
Kevin
story.
Spacey has led a trail of misery of all the men that he's hit on and abused. And he, is back in the movie business.
Well, Maud Angelica Bain was cited as the bravest woman in Norway in 2020 for how she spoke candidly about her father's suicide and encouraged other people to get help.
Right. She gave a powerful speech at his funeral. In Malaysia, police in the Malaysian state of Kelantan arrested 12 men during a raid on a gay party. These are the kind of crackdowns they do in totalitarian nations, and I'm sure they're going to be coming here. AIDS news, health news, more health cuts. Trump isn't done cutting your health care. Now it's low-income kids that Republicans are targeting. It's the biggest cut to the safety net. The number of Americans who would become newly underinsured is going to be in the millions, and that would be above and beyond the millions already set to lose coverage. It just goes on and on. And measles is at the highest level in 30 years, but HHS Secretary RFK Jr. says it's not a crisis. What did I say? They said, what's his wife's name?
Usha?
Huh?
You're talking about J.D. Vance's
RFK.
wife? Oh, RFK. I don't know.
She's an actress who was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but they said she should now star on the fabulous Mrs. Measles. All right. Alan Cumming. I mentioned him at the beginning. He guest hosted on Jimmy Kimmel, and it was funny because he starts off by saying, "I'm the first guest host of Jimmy Kimmel who's never been a guest on this show." But then he went on a monologue. He goes, "How are you doing?" She said, "Aside from being in a country that just reintroduced concentration camps," and went on like that. He also called trans people superheroes and explained why. And we're going to link in our email to that opening monologue. It's funny, but it's trenchant. And Alan Cumming is terrific. Okay, lots of shows have closed on Broadway recently, but one that has legs is Hadestown, the musical, Tony winning. And they've just announced a new principal cast that's taking over in September. And it features two out prominent actors. One is out Jack Wolf, who's going to be Orpheus, the young star-crossed lover of Eurydice, who's going to be played by a Disney star, Morgan Dudley, and the out opera singer, Paulo Schott. He also does Broadway, the Brazilian operatic baritone, and he won the Tony for South Pacific. He's going to be Hades, whose lover is Persephone, played by Rebecca Naomi Jones, who was the first woman of color to play Laurie in Oklahoma on Broadway. Anyway, so yeah, what would the theater do without gay folks?
Oh my God, it wouldn't exist. Come on.
Oh, and speaking of musicals of tragic Greek stories, I saw the revival of, now I've always said the gospel at Colonus, but they kept saying Colonus at this play that I saw at the open air theater on Little Island off the coast of the West Village on the Hudson River. It's that Barry Diller funded park, but it is a magical setting for a summer show. And the gospel singing, which was led by gospel singer Kim Burrell, who who had some controversy in her life over some anti-gay comments for which she apologized. But the music was rousing and terrific. I had a little trouble following the plot. I think when this premiered in 1983 with Morgan Freeman, I think we all read, Oedipus at Colonus in high school, so we all knew what was going on. But I thought it was a little hard to follow here.
Well, meanwhile, I'm a comic.
It's only running till Saturday.
I'm a comic book guy. And so I've seen both of the two new big comic book releases, one's that's coming out by the time you see this, and the other that just came out. The first is Superman. And I got to say, first of all, he's super hot. The new Superman.
What's his name?
Oh, gosh, I've forgotten.
Corn Sweat, something like that?
Oh, that's terrible. I should really know that. I've forgotten. Well, just he's super hot. But what's interesting about it is how it brings in, without trying to, it brings in issues that are relevant to today about immigration, because Superman comes from another planet and got here technically illegally. And he's nice to people. I've always not been too keen on the character because he's a little too much of a Boy Scout for me. But, he is nice. And that apparently drives the right wing wild, that because he's an illegal immigrant and he's nice.
Bring back civility.
Right. So that's kind of a little bit of the point of a lot of the movie. So it's not great, but it's a good movie. It's entertaining.
Yeah, a friend of mine who is not into superhero movies, he's over in France right now, but he saw it over there and he loved it.
Yeah, no,
people seem to like the film.
It's entertaining. It's fun. And again, not great. And
it's not being picketed by the Proud Boys or something?
No, it's making a ton of money.
Right, it's the big hit.
Yeah, so good for them. And then the other superhero movie I saw was Fantastic Four: First Steps. Now, I am very much a Marvel guy, and this is a Marvel Comics property. For those of you who don't know,
who are those people?
The Fantastic Four are basically a family. That's the thing that distinguishes the Fantastic Four. It's a guy and his wife, his brother-in-law, and their best friend, and they go up in space together, get exposed to cosmic rays, and as a result, they come back down and they've got all these crazy superpowers. And they use them to make the world better. Again, it's not great, but it's good. I think it helps if you know a little bit about Marvel to begin with. But even if you don't, I think you'll find enough to enjoy it. It's a little bit expository in the very beginning, but they do it in a kind of flashy way. And the whole thing, what makes it really kind of fun, is it's set in the 1960s. So it's a little bit of a retro futuristic vibe to the whole thing. So it's, again, and it's got that nice family vibe. So I can recommend both of those superhero films. And if you're like me, or even me, I'm a little tired of the whole superhero thing because there's been a lot of it. But as superhero entries go for the genre, these are two worthwhile films.
I certainly will try to check them out. And we're just down to our last 45 seconds. We had a wonderful luncheon for M&N. They're trying to promote this place, which is where we originate for. And there's our whole team there. They technically were honoring Ann and me, but there's Chris and Rich and Bill and Marin and my friend Tony Halbut there in the back, who's not on our team, but he's a big supporter of the show. So yeah, it was nice, and we got to keep places like this going.
Yep, yeah. This is the grassroots kind of thing that'll keep us alive.
All right, so we're almost there. You're terrific. So Chris will be back with Ann next week. No, Ann will be back next week. Yep. But thanks for watching, and Chris gonna be back in a couple of weeks.
Bye.